Welcome to today's episode. We're joined by a fellow servant in the St. Vincent de Paul family, Shannon Clancy, who is the CEO of St. Vincent de Paul in Phoenix. Shannon's team is just really doing incredible work in the Phoenix area. And in this month's podcast episode, we're going to hear Shannon's story. We're going to hear about her experience in the field and some of the unique ways in which St. Vincent de Paul and Phoenix is reaching the most in need and the most vulnerable. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Shannon, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. So happy to be here with you. Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and I know with the upcoming St. Vincent de Paul National Conference, you're going to be visiting us here in Louisville. So
I look forward to it. Absolutely, yeah. My first time there.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we look forward to it. Let's go ahead and what I'd like to do is get you to talk a little bit about your story. You first joined St. Vincent de Paul in Phoenix back in 2002, and since then have had just a myriad of other experiences as well that have led you to this place now, being CEO. I think it was October of 2022 when.
Yeah. Coming up on 3 years. Mm-hmm.
That's great. And I just love to hear more about your story. I understand that you began your career as a case manager in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and you served in transitional housing programs for families that are experiencing homelessness. And I'm sure all of that kind of shaped who you are and your journey and all that. But if you could tell us a little bit about your journey, and I'll turn it over to you.
You're right. The experience in the Jesuit Volunteer Corps really was a formative one for me. JVC, as it's called, has a tagline, "Ruined for Life," and I think that certainly was an experience in a good way. For me, having a family that I grew up in, that all my basic needs were met, that certainly wasn't an experience that I had. And so when I got there to Northern California and I began to enter in the stories and the experiences of some of the people that we served there, it really did change me in really wonderful ways in that sense, but in the sense of really breaking my heart and recognizing so many of the struggles that people have. And so I think one of the formative experiences happened with a young lady I met. So I started in the children's program, and then I was kind of learning out how to be a case manager and what that meant. And at one point, there was a family there that was 2 parents and 5 kids. It was a little apartment complex, and they all lived together in an apartment. And they had been there a long time. And in transitional housing, as you know, you get a certain period of time, and then you have to make progress or you have to move on. And this family had been given some extensions, and they were at a place where they weren't making progress, and the staff asked them to leave. And here I am, a young volunteer. What do I know? But they're sobbing. The daughter, who's 16, not that much, younger than me, is sobbing. The mother is sobbing, and they're saying, "Where are we going to go?" And I'm thinking to myself, I thought we were here to help. It seems like we're causing a whole lot more pain in that family. And so the day came that it was time for them to move out. And I was so traumatized and scared and sad that I kind of just hid in my office. And then there's a knock at the door. And I open the door, and there's this young woman, 16 years old, Gabriella. And I steel myself. I try to get ready because I'm waiting for her anger and her fear and something to come at me. And instead she said, "I just want to thank you. I want to thank you." And we hugged and we cried and said goodbye. And when they left, I realized something very important. You can see it still touches me all these years later. It's been a long time. That it really wasn't about the services. It was about the love and care. And she knew I cared, and that I cried, and that, I loved them, and that was enough for her. And that was a really, really critical experience for me. And I think something that probably led me to this work at St. Vincent de Paul, because it is about obviously the services we provide. In Phoenix, we say feed, clothe, house, heal. It is about that. But it's not just that. It's letting people know that they are not alone in their struggles. And that probably matters more. And what she taught me was that that love and that care is enough. And that's something that has fueled me. You know, we get in this space and this work sometimes that it's all about what we do, the things that we make happen every day. But really, in the end, all of us, whether we're someone who has basic needs or someone who maybe has spiritual needs, we just want to be seen and heard and known and valued. And she taught me something so important that I think has fueled me all these years, is that it really is about that love and care. And that's something that has stayed with me and been part of different experiences for me. And I've just been really grateful to have learned that lesson and to try to continue to learn that lesson during my career. So that, you know, that led me to a place like St. Vincent de Paul, where every day we're here to feed, clothe, house, heal, but we're also here to provide opportunities for people to serve and experience and come together on common ground, those who need help and those who can offer help, to be transformed and to recognize that for most people, yes, you need food, clothing, housing, healthcare, but what you need to know is that you're not alone, that someone sees that you're trying, that somebody is willing to try to enter into that suffering and help you over that bump. And so that's really what I've been grateful to be part of. And I've learned so much from the people that, in theory, I've been serving. They've taught me so much more than anything that I could have ever done, and just been really grateful to be alongside people who care so deeply, and that we can be vulnerable and willing to let one another enter in.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, it's obvious, you know, even now, so many years later, it's still very personal to you and very important to you. And what I'm getting from what you're saying, and you know, the 3 years that I spent as CEO at St. Vincent de Paul as well, I learned so much, and you really can't unsee what you see, and
Right.
and the experiences that you have, and it is life changing in so many ways. And you know, it really gets down to what you're saying and what I hear you saying. It gets down to a recognition of the fact that we're relational beings, as human beings created by God. We're created for relationship, and so often those that I can imagine you all serve in Phoenix and here in Louisville suffer from a poverty of relationship in some respects. And to your point, that in many, yeah, house, feed, pay rent, do those things, right? But it's that relationship side of this that really makes the difference. And I think the difference that St. Vincent de Paul makes.
Well, certainly. And you know, at the heart and soul of St. Vincent de Paul's mission is a recognition that it's a two-way street, right?
Right.
That we are all here in this world to be able to learn and grow and change and love and care and support one another. And that's a journey for all of us. And I think that's why this mission has become so important to me, is not so much for what it does. And we accomplish great things, you know, across the world in this mission, but really for the opportunity that gives everyone to be able to transform their heart. And I think in all of the years of service and in all the different things that I've been so grateful to be part of over the years, the thing that I really have learned is the most joyful people I've ever known in this world are the ones who find a way to pour themselves out, their life into service, some in whatever way, to their family, to their community, to those around them, that we were really meant, as you said, to be relational, and that we're meant to care for one another. And when we do, all of that comes back to us, you know, and in the loneliness and isolation and all these things that we hear about the world, the solution is always inside us, is to share our hearts with one another. And that joy that comes back can just transform all of us when we really can see and know one another. So that's really what's embedded, the mechanism of change in an organization like the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and why it's been such a blessing to be able to work alongside, be alongside so many people that come together to care.
Yeah, I agree. And we another thing that's coming to mind as I listen to you speak is this notion of building empathy in our communities. And now, and not just now, but even you know in the recent past, um, there's a lot of challenges, and homelessness is prevalent in all of our communities, and there's reasons for that. And I think we can both agree that a lot of it has to do with a lack of the right kind of housing. And there's other reasons, right? But that lack of the right kind of housing, it's how do you define affordable housing? Well, for us in St. Vincent de Paul, it looks like emergency shelter and transitional shelter, as well as, permanent supportive housing for folks that are 30% or below median income, which is $25,000 for a family of four. And so we're providing a much needed service. And, I think it's up to us as well to educate our communities on the reasons for homelessness. And I'd love it if we could build empathy across the board, and that be the reason why folks come together to help to solve this, because the reality is the abundance in our communities is there, whether or not the will is there. And, I'm a big proponent of, when I look at our organization and other nonprofits that are in this business, yeah, government's important, but we can't rely on that to be the answer. It's not going to be the answer. And so building that empathy across, our community, our business community, and recognizing the value of what it means. And I do want to get into Feed, Clothe, House, and Heal, and talk about what you're doing in Phoenix. The economic impact that you're having in Phoenix, not just from an economic perspective in getting folks housed and off the street, or in your medical facilities, your dental clinic and medical facilities, keeping them out of the emergency room. Like it has an impact.
Right.
It has an impact on tourism. It has an impact on all kinds of things, right, for the health of our communities. So I'd love for you to talk about what you all are doing. And Shannon, it's amazing. I have the opportunity. I haven't been to visit you all in Phoenix, but I have had the opportunity to talk to folks that have. And for those in Louisville, Shannon, you can tell a little story. This is the birthplace and home of Muhammad Ali.
Right.
Muhammad also had in his heart what you all do in Phoenix and would visit
Right.
you all.
Well, he lived in Arizona for, for a long time. And he had a heart for St. Vincent de Paul's mission. And he would come down and be with our guests, whether in the family dining room or in our dining room that serve people who are experiencing homelessness. And he just had that compassion and love for all people. And what was really interesting is even the children in our dining room who maybe didn't know who Muhammad Ali was, they were little, but they sensed it because he had this presence that of just love, that he saw someone that into their soul, and the children could recognize that.
Yeah.
And so, I think when you talk about that empathy and those types of things, that comes from experience. Either it's the experience that you've personally had growing up, but a lot of us, as I shared my story, didn't have that. And so the only way that you can really develop that is to enter into the stories and the experiences that people who are struggling have. And it changes you. It changes your perspective when we can truly see one another and recognize the humanity in the other. And so, and here in Phoenix, we have a really large St. Vincent de Paul, a really large operation. And that's that's essentially because we have been able to invite the community in, whether it's business or schools and organizations or academic institutions, or as you said, hospitals and others, to build all kinds of partnerships, to have thousands of volunteers, community volunteers, in addition to our Vincentians, to say, can we be this common ground at St. Vincent de Paul that invites everybody in to share their gifts and talents and hearts so that we're all changed, and that we can then, one of my colleagues says, and I just love this, like, there's a lot more of us that can offer help than need help. So how could we come together in our communities to really share the gifts and talents that we have and do even more? And that's really the premise that we operate, that people do want to, they are generous and kind and compassionate and loving. And it's our job at St. Vincent de Paul to try to harness that as a force for good in our community. And so that's how we think of it when we're thinking about our work to feed, clothe, house, heal. How can we structure it so that we can invite people in, not only so that we can do more, because the more people you have, the more you can do, but also so that we can transform more people and give us all a chance to be part of something good. And that's really the mechanism that I think has allowed us to grow, is to recognize that everybody out there does want to help. We just need to find a way to get them engaged.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I'm thinking about what our communities would look like without St. Vincent de Paul.
Yeah.
And it's a very different community. And so that, the feed, clothe, house, and heal, just a couple statistics for the folks that are listening. It's just amazing. I mean, just mind-boggling what you all are doing in Phoenix. On the feed side, 3 million meals, 3 million meals last
It's
year.
A big commercial kitchen that we are serving, not just in our own dining rooms, but we, over the last number of years, have been able to cater some meals to shelters or housing programs or other community programs that don't have a commercial kitchen. And we do that with the use of community volunteers. So we have a skeleton staff, and we invite volunteers in to help us prep. And we try to get various food donations and things that we can in order to make that stretch farther. Thousands, a couple 100,000 food boxes that are being delivered by our Vincentians in 80 different conferences, or, for those who are, I'm assuming most people know, but those are kind of teams of volunteers based out of parishes that do home visits and are bringing those food boxes directly to people. They did about $9 million of rent and utility assistance and keeping people in their homes. And that's something I think people don't know about St. Vincent de Paul, is at its very base level. We might have other ministries like a medical and dental clinic or transitional housing or services for people who are unhoused. But truly our base ministry that we all share is preventing homelessness by really helping shore people up, whether with food boxes or a timely rent or utility or sometimes mortgage payment, or even healthcare can fall into that bucket. That's the majority of the work that we do as a society, is just trying to step in and be that as if family for those who might not have that family to help keep them stable. And that's really the base of the work that we all share, is trying to keep people in their homes and help them after a bump get back on the road so that they can support their children.
Well, the value of that is just immeasurable, the prevention side of things. And I think we as St. Vincent de Paul societies need to be really shouting that from the mountaintop in terms of what we are doing there, because the power of those conferences, I can imagine it's dozens and dozens and dozens of parishes, maybe hundreds. I don't know. I'm not sure in Phoenix, in Louisville, there's about 27 conferences, but they're punching way above their weight, in terms of the prevention side of things. And I think that it's really important as well for our listeners to know how vulnerable we are now as a nation in terms of the number of people that are maybe that one paycheck away, or one car breakdown away, or one really expensive medical bill from themselves finding themselves homeless because they may not have that family or friend or, or network or connections to be able to keep them from being homeless. I mean, we all know folks that have issues in our families and our circle of friends, but they're not necessarily homeless because they have that backing.
That
And so
community.
the community, and so the prevention side of this is just is amazing. And there's an initiative that you all have, the 2025 initiative
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
by the end of the year, you have the goal to prevent homelessness for 12 people
Right.
for every one that you
Right.
rehouse that have
Right.
been experiencing homelessness. Talk to that a little bit.
Sure. Well,
That's really
let me,
it's a really
yeah.
cool way to put it.
Right.
For every one that we rehouse, we're going to
Right.
prevent 12
Right.
from even entering homelessness.
Sure. And let me tell you where that comes from. So, here in Phoenix, like many big cities around the country, especially those, we used to be a very affordable housing market, very affordable. That was one of the reasons people came here. And then over time, that really changed. We stopped building as much during the recession in 08, 09. And then things kept growing, housing prices rose. And our homelessness has grown like many around the country. It just got to be a really tight rental market and priced a lot of people out. So one stat that we have in the county, Maricopa County, where we are in Phoenix, is that for every 2 people that are coming into homelessness, there's only 1 going out. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So you can see that as long as we have that ratio, homelessness will be rampant because you can't keep up. Even if you're doing a good job rehousing people, it won't work if you've got 2
Right.
people coming in for every 1 going out. Every community needs a 1-to-1 ratio, and then their shelter will be sufficient. So that's where we found ourselves in Phoenix. And so our first initiative for Housing 2025, as we were approaching 2025, was to say, let's really set a target on being able to rehouse 2,025 people by the year 2025. We want to show and demonstrate to people that we can be successful in rehousing people. So we did that, and we actually met that goal 6 months ahead of time. And it was really successful. And it allowed us to illustrate something that I think a lot of people don't really know, is that we do know what to do in helping people be
Right.
rehoused. We just don't have enough resources and space in housing and all kinds of other things. Not to say that people don't have issues. We do transitional housing here. That's intentionally, a year or 2 of wraparound support to help people get back to housing. But the point is, they can be rehoused. We know how to do it. We just need to be able to scale it. So that was our first goal. But then we realized that we had another opportunity, and that's where the goal came for this year, is to say, truly, what St. Vincent de Paul does better than anyone, to your point, is rehouse people. We don't like to call it a safety net, right? We had a CFO that called it a trampoline. St. Vincent de Paul is a trampoline. We're not just catching people. We want to propel them, lift them back up so that they can move forward with their lives. And that's where that new goal comes from, to say that the vast majority, even though we are doing a good job rehousing, what we need to be doing is preventing homelessness for significantly more people. And if we were doing that in our community really well, we would get that ratio from 2-to-1 down to 1-to-1. So that's really what that's about, harnessing the efforts and the generosity and that hidden gem that you talked about in our Vincentians that are doing all of those home visits, really deciding what families we will be able to prevent homelessness for, and trying to move them forward so that they never lose their housing. It's so much more traumatic to becoming homeless. It's also more expensive. So we find that it's an average of about $1,700 now. Rent got more expensive here in Phoenix, but about $1,700 to intervene and prevent homelessness, compared to what could be, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 when somebody falls into homelessness and has to be sheltered and pay off evictions, let alone the trauma of homelessness. So that's what we've been working on here. And a really interesting project that we're working on related to family homelessness is in partnership with some local funders. And a funder has set up an evaluation with our 3 state universities, ASU, U of A, University of Arizona, Arizona State, and Northern Arizona University. And what they're doing is they are right now studying the longer term impact of homelessness prevention funding. Does it really stop homelessness? Now, there is research across the country that suggests that's true, but we did not have any on the work that we were doing. And so that impact evaluation is going on right now. Our initial results suggest that the work that our Vincentians are doing is making a difference, and we're hoping by the end of the summer we'll be able to say these independent, researchers, these independent academics are saying, yes, when we intervene with a rent payment and we stop someone from becoming homeless, that a year later, the vast majority are still in housing and they never became homeless.
That's
and
a
it's our
huge
hope
study.
that that data will make a huge difference across the country for all of our Vincentians, and also maybe put our Vincentians up with against other folks that have paid case managers that are doing this work. So we're really excited about the fruits of that. Thus far, it seems that, 80+% of those folks are still in their homes, but we're waiting kind of for that 12-month mark to pass and to keep that research going. And that's something that our Vincentians are participating in as they help people. They're inviting those folks to into that work to say, would you be willing to have somebody follow up with you? And so we're excited about that because we do think, to your point, this is a really important safety trampoline, right? It's a really important trampoline in our community that our Vincentians are providing. And how can we scale that work? Because that's going to make a huge difference for families, whether it's with food or rent assistance or utility assistance or a car repair or any of the things that they need to ensure that they can stay in their homes.
What is the percentage of, just approximately, of funding for you all that is private versus government funding?
Yeah. So
And I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting the sense that you have a pretty significant pipeline of private funding coming in.
Yeah, it's the majority private. We've had a little bit more government funding over the course of the pandemic. In fact, like many councils across the country, some of the initial money when there was the moratorium on evictions and there were federal money that was coming across the country to help shore people up and keep them in their homes. We were able to have some of that, but there's essentially very little government funding for homelessness prevention work, for those rent assistance and things like that's pretty much gone. And so the vast majority of that in probably most communities is private funding. And so we have some relationship with local government now, but the vast majority of our Phoenix funding over the years is private. And so we really work hard at that. We have 25,000 donors or more that are contributing in some way to our work, everybody doing a little bit. And what that empowers is first for us to, again, invite people to engage and be part of our work, right? To have that sense that they're part of the St. Vincent de Paul mission, helping to feed, clothe, house, and heal the community. But it also gives us the flexibility to be able to respond in the way that the people in front of us are asking us, instead of having to run the programs in a certain way. So the vast majority of our funding historically has been private. And as the American Rescue Plan money, the ARPA funds and those things are running out by 2026. So we're going to see even more that private funding is going to be really important, that volunteerism and trying to really leverage the talents and expertise and labor of the community is going to be really important in order to continue to serve.
Yeah, I think we have a unique opportunity. I mean, I'm just feeling this in my gut that we have a unique opportunity right now to really get that message out to folks, to support what we're doing. And we also, with our new American Pope and his focus on Catholic social justice. I mean, I've heard a number of folks that are not Catholic talk about that and the importance of Catholic social justice to a lot of the issues that we're facing in our communities. And it really is up to us. When you think about Matthew 25 and helping those that we see that are hungry, or those that need to be clothed, or those that need to be fed, or those that are thirsty, and to really, as a community, and for the health of our community, to be able to embrace that. I think we have an opportunity right now. I'm on a number of boards here locally that we know that some pullback in federal funding is going to have an impact, where there's going to have to be other sources or other ways to do what they do. And while that's a challenging thing, I mean, the ends never meet, right? That. I mean, we all know that running these organizations, the ends never meet. There's always, you have to really have an entrepreneurial bent to run an organization like St. Vincent de Paul, the size of what you have there, or any size across the country. You really have to have that notion of being an entrepreneur. But I think it's an opportunity for us to demonstrate the impact that we're having in the communities. I mean, when you say that, look, it costs $1,700, on average to keep someone from becoming homeless. And if we don't, the cost to the community, to society, is 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, whatever it is, right? So you don't need to be a mathematician or an accountant to understand, wow, that's pretty important to keep people from being homeless. But I think we have an opportunity. And I know there's other things that you all are doing as well. And just wondering if you can maybe share, I know there's education, there's college scholarships, there's all sorts of wraparound things that you're doing.
Sure.
What is one unique thing that you all are doing that folks may not know about?
Yeah, well, all those things, right? I think one of the things that we do that many councils around the country may not be doing, some, but few, is we have a medical and dental clinic for uninsured patients.
Okay.
And that effort has really scaled over the last number of years, and that's because of really exciting partnerships. So we've been running that medical and dental clinic for a while, and we're doing it now in partnership with the medical and dental academic institutions. So sometimes people have a sense of what a charity clinic looks like. That's not what this is. I would say, when we look on a medical side, it's top of the line, high quality care, preventative care, primary care, specialty care for people who would have nowhere else to go. We have a really exciting partnership that we developed with Creighton University Health Sciences. So Creighton has a campus in Omaha. That's their main campus. But now they also have this health sciences campus here in Phoenix. They have a medical, nursing, PT, OT, pharmacy. And so we are now the primary clinical education site for Creighton, also for Mayo Clinic. And some of the others in our area. Last year, we had 225 learners that were in our clinic providing care, not only learning how to be doctors and nurses and pharmacists, but also understanding the needs of patients that have fewer resources, so that when they get out into private practice or hospitals or wherever they are, they'll know the issues that some of our lower resourced folks have. And so that's providing clinical education, it's providing high quality care. But what's really exciting is we've been able to reduce hospital readmissions.
Yeah.
So our average readmission is like 3.5% to 4%. The average readmission for an uninsured patient nationally is 12%. So it's getting these outcomes that are much different, training the next generation of our healthcare workforce, really trying to demonstrate what healthcare providers can do when you just get out of the way and you let them serve. And a lot of them say, like, this is why I went into medicine. I just wanted to help people. No barriers, no insurance denials. No, you can only have 3 PT visits when you need 25 to walk. And so it's been really exciting. Same on the dental side, partnerships with dental schools and really transforming people's lives. So we're working on an expansion site, we hope in our East Valley, but really trying to do it this time, not fully on charity, but by inviting those academic and hospital partners in to cost share with us. So that's a project that we're excited to work on, because if we can change the way those operating costs are funded by asking hospitals who keep people out of the ER and have less uncompensated care, and by academic institutions who have these really rich, wonderful clinical education opportunities for their students, if we can all work together and fund it together, then there's an opportunity to scale it and replicate it and maybe offer that model to other places in the country, because certainly there are lots of places where those academic institutions are trying to train their students, and there's lots of places where uninsured folks don't have the care they need, including specialty care. And that's going to be more important, especially if we see some of the Medicaid cuts that potentially are coming. We're going to have more people that are uninsured, and we need better ways to be able to meet their needs. So we're really excited about that. And you know, a lot of other programs, and again, all trying to utilize great partnerships in the community. So that's not, you know, that's some really big institutions and hospitals and academic folks to say, how can we work together? How can we leverage all of our skills and talents to be able to do good work? And that's really, when we look forward into the future, we have a vision statement that says, let none be lost. You know, let none be lost. Not any folks who need feed, clothe, house, heal, right, that we come into contact with. Let none be lost. No volunteers or someone who's just aching to serve and belong to something bigger and share some of the gifts and talents that they have. How can the Society of St. Vincent de Paul not do everything? You know, none of us can do everything. But how can we be a place that is ready to harness the goodness that is out there in the community and really allow it to support and care for more people? So
That's just
that's what we're
unbelievable.
excited about.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And I, not unbelievable. Well, yeah, I mean, it's amazing the work that you all are doing and the impact that you're having. It's truly a model, and I love the notion of collaboration with others, because everybody benefits from what we're doing, right? And how would, and I want to wrap up with one last question, but before I do that, for folks that are listening that do want to get involved, what is the easiest way to do that in Phoenix?
Yeah, so
Just
yeah.
call.
Yeah, stvincentdepaul.net, right? stvincentdepaul.net, or, you know, call us up, go to our website. We have the ability to volunteer. If anybody's visiting Phoenix and even wants to come in for a tour, they take a look. You are here visiting and you want to just, hey, I want to come in and help in the kitchen for a couple of hours. You can self-schedule to volunteer. We invite people to do drives. We even have a helping from home volunteer opportunity. So if you're anywhere in the country and you say, hey, I want to check this out, there's things that I want to do with my kids from home this summer, we have some projects that people can do at home. And then if they're local, they drop them off. If they're not, they mail them back. And so we have lots of folks. We just think it's important for all of us to feel like we can do something. You know,
Yeah.
there's ways that we're really trying now, when we think about how can we do more for the community, we want to do it by looking at those collaborations and partnerships. How can we structure something where we invite people? Be an angel in our Angels on Call program, and you can help intervene when that mom and her kids need just a rent payment. You know, how can you step in? And I can't do it all, but with 10 others, we can be part of helping that mom move forward. So there's so many ways to get involved, and we invite people to come visit. We invite you to share some of the work that you're doing, because we can all learn from one another. And that's the really exciting thing about being part of the St. Vincent de Paul network, is that we all get a chance to learn from one another and experience best practices and be inspired and encouraged along the way. This mission is so full of hope, right? That's probably the final message. Like, we hear a lot of stuff out there, but if you pull back the curtain at St. Vincent de Paul, here in Phoenix, in Louisville, anywhere around the country, there's good things going on. There's good people working together, and we invite people to be part of it. It's hard to be sad when you're a Vincentian, right? There's so much joy and hope.
We look. I know that we all look forward to the National Assembly coming up and being able to share and to be able to come together and look what others are doing and certainly showcase what we're doing in Louisville. I think it's really going to be a wonderful attendance. We're within 1 day's drive of 75% of the nation's population. So I think a lot of folks will be driving in as well because they can, which is nice, right? And so and there's a rich history. There's a rich history of St. Vincent de Paul in Louisville. It's over 170 years. I think in Phoenix you all are 80, probably 80-ish.
We got started a little later out here, it's not necessarily a 1 day's drive from most. So we were pleased to have so many people come last year. And it really is a time for us to be renewed and inspired, fellowship, share best practices, continue friendships, year over year. And that's, it's really a wonderful opportunity. So if your listeners out there, even in Louisville, are saying, I'm local, even if you go 1 day, it's really a great experience, and it fuels you with great joy and hope to know that there's so many like-minded, like-hearted people that care in our world. We need not worry. We just have to invite more people into that.
And there's going to be some great speakers and nationally renowned speakers on homelessness, and a lot to learn there as well. And I was mentioning 171 years for us here in Louisville. One of the things that I'm so proud of was my successor at St. Vincent de Paul, Jennifer Clark, who I don't believe you all have met.
I don't think so. I look forward to meeting her when I get
in
there.
August.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in those 170 years, she's our first female CEO, which is just an amazing accomplishment. She is doing wonderful work, and everyone is so confident in the direction that she's taking the society here in Louisville. And I understand that you too were the first female CEO in Phoenix. And I want to finish, for our listeners, not just our female listeners, but all of our listeners, the St. Vincent de Paul Society continues to change over its, almost 200-year existence since Frederick Ozanam created it in the 1830s, and it will continue to evolve and do wonderful things, and we'll be here for the next 1,000 years, whatever. But talk to the importance of the growing female leadership within the society to St. Vincent de Paul.
Sure. I think that all organizations and all of us, we need a variety of leaders, right?
Yep.
We need a variety of leaders, so that for a couple of reasons. You need those different kinds of perspectives to come together to be able to really lead forward. You also become a role model. So when you are the first woman or the first whoever, you're a role model for the people behind us. And I think that's really important. Here in Phoenix, for a while, our society was all male Vincentians. And at some point, and I know some of those ladies who were some of the first ones, that they were doing the work all along, but eventually they just kind of became officially recognized. And I think that contributes anytime you have a diverse set of voices and experiences and backgrounds and perspectives. That just makes for a richer organization. It really does. And it allows the mission to flourish. And that means partners too, not just Catholic. Here in Phoenix, we have partnerships with all kinds of people of faith and people of no faith. because we can all agree on this human connection, these human values. That's really what Catholic social teaching is all about, and that universal desire to be able to help one another. I guess, the one thing that I would say is, and I sometimes share with young girls when they say, oh, you're the first woman CEO. I guess when I was a little girl, not that I thought of being in this position, but I thought we would have made some progress so that we didn't have like the qualifiers anymore of first whoever. And so I tell those little girls that I hope that by the time they're old like me, that we will be at a place where we are just leaders. Right? That we can embrace all diverse voices, and that we recognize that any one of us can be a leader, and we just can work together. So I think I maybe thought that along the way, but that was one of the things, and maybe Jennifer feels the same way, that surprised me a little. What I saw when I came into this position was that especially our Vincentian women who are maybe 80s and 90s, I recognize their joy because this was maybe an opportunity they didn't have when they were, coming up. But also our young, some of my young colleagues, it meant a lot to them. And what that said to me is that we just need more examples of a variety of leaders so we get used to it. Right? So
well,
that I'm
there,
hopeful.
Well, there needs to be a first. You're blazing
There does need to be a first, and that after, we hope that it'll just be continued inspired leadership across, our country and across the world, and that we can inspire others to be so committed to service that they are looking for ways that they can share their gifts and talents with our mission. And that's really been the great joy of being part of this society, not just here in Phoenix, but across the country and across the world, really sharing that commitment to caring for people.
Well, Shannon, you're doing wonderful work. You're doing God's work. People are watching. People are looking to you for that example. You're creating that pathway for others in so many different ways to be able to contribute and help. And blessings to you and the work that you're doing there. Next time I'm in Phoenix, I'll be sure to call and stop by and see firsthand the great work that you are doing.
Absolutely, and we might even put you to work.
Yeah, there you go. I can do that.
Thank you, David, for what you're doing to tell the stories. And I hope that your listeners, I hear from the different conversations you're having. These are the ways that we fill ourselves back up with hope, right? And that's really this blessing of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. Every day there's beautiful things happening, and we can all share in them, not just in our own community, but all across the country and the world, to know that all of this good work is being done for the sake of others, and then transforming our own hearts in the process. So thank you for your ministry and for everything that you do to foster that joy and hope in other people.
Thank you. We'll see you in Louisville in August.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.